How do you drive that when you have two customers for every transaction that you do? How do you balance that service mentality to meet the needs of both of those people in that particular case?
Yeah, I love the question. So it's something that we've dove deep into as a company because, ultimately, like you said, the clients are paying for it, right? So they're our client. They're the ones that are signing up with us. We're serving them. We look at our realtors as partners within the deal. And so a lot of our realtors, they know the value of a good inspection, and they want somebody that is going to do a great job for their client, but is not going to be an unnecessary alarmist at things too, that, could be fixed by a handyman. And so having the clarity around what is really important to a realtor and also really important to the client, most of the time they go hand in hand, and as you know too, there's lots of different personalities in the inspection world, and there's a lot of different personalities in real estate. And so we've found that our best pairing is with people that have values that are similar to ours, right? So
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Orlando Podcast. My name is Tyler Gibson. With me here today, I have JT from Central Florida Building Inspectors. JT, thanks for being here today.
yeah, hey, thanks, Tyler. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, hey, so we'll just go ahead and kick it off the way that we always do. Why is it that you do what you do?
Yeah, so I'm the owner of Central Florida Building Inspectors, and we just live and breathe performing inspections. We've got a 16 inspector team. We serve coast to coast. We really feel that, helping our clients make better informed decisions about their property purchases is such a big event that it's so important to get that right. And so having the clarity that you need in order to either move forward or back away from a purchase, we find so much value in it internally. And just from a value standpoint from us, like we love helping people. We love helping people make informed decisions about their property because, as you know, it's one of the biggest purchases that anybody's ever going to make.
It's one of the largest financial decisions people are going to make in their entire life. And so you want to make sure you get it right. So how did you get started in home inspections?
Yeah, so I feel like I've been in it forever. My dad actually started the company back in the mid 80s. And so he was kind of doing this before home inspections really were a thing, like a real industry. And so he was a GC, and his friend would say, "Hey, I'm buying a house. Can you come stop in and just take a look at everything, right? Get up on the roof." And so it kind of morphed into a business for him. And I remember being a little kid, he'd pick me up from school and I'd go around and check outlets for him. He'd stop at an inspection on the way home. So I was doing this really young. And then, in high school, I started working out of part-time in high school, part-time working. And so I just grew up in this industry, and it was always me and him. He never really hired too many people. I think there was a few people along the way that just never really worked out. And so it was just me as a family business. And then he started getting a little tired of doing them in the 2000s. And so I took it over full-fledged in 2008. And it was just me for a long time. I got into the point where I started having a family, got married, started having kids, and I was doing everything. And it was 16-hour days of answering phones between inspections and booking jobs and, talking to people in an attic at an inspection. It's crazy while doing the marketing and the reporting and continuing ed. And so I started hiring some people, and right now we're at 25 people for the team. We got 16 inspectors. We've got 3 on the growth and marketing side of things, and then 4 over in operations, and then some additional people too that help out. And then back in 2005, I started a separate company, Elite Mold Services, and we do mold inspections and testing, and it pairs really well too with the skill set that we have. So we've got 6 people over there. So yeah, I've just grown up in the industry and, been doing it for a long time. And so now I've got my team kind of taking care of all our clients, and I'm in the background, coming up with new ideas and different ways that we can better serve our clients.
That's really cool. And it's a different story than most of the people that have been on the show. Most everyone else that's been on the show had a full-time job or a full-time career, some sort of career outside of the businesses that they started. So it's fascinating to hear that you just kind of came into it and took over and started building and making it your own. Very cool. Your dad was a GC, so it sounds like you watched him be an entrepreneur your whole life, was it safe to assume that being an entrepreneur wasn't something scary for you because you'd already seen it happen, or was there times when it was like, oh wow, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, he definitely is the entrepreneur mindset. So, he probably had 5 or 6 different companies running at all different times, at any one time, I should say. So, I grew up in that kind of like think of an idea, run with it, see if it can turn into some money and that type of mentality. But yeah, he had his real estate broker's license, he had GC, home inspector, started a mold remediation company later in his life too. So, always like trying to do something new. I think for me, it was a balance. Like I didn't find that stuff scary, and I didn't feel like I didn't never grew up with the mentality of like I need to have a 9 to 5 job, and like I was comfortable with the uncertainty of not knowing when the next call was going to come in. But as in this industry and also just in construction, like you show up, you answer your phone, you show up on time, and you're beating 90% of the competition. So it really was our issue with the company was always that we couldn't have enough capacity to answer everybody's needs. And so for me, it was a really neat entrepreneurial journey for me to get out of my comfort zone of just saying like, hey, no one else can do it like me. I can't scale this thing. Like I am the company, and shifting over into a mindset where it's, I need help. I need to find people that are going to get on the bus with me. I'm going to put them in the right seat so that they're happy, they're fulfilled, they're carrying out their vision as far as what they want to do. And so really having good clarity and growth around that has helped me turn into, we did almost 5,000 inspections last year. We're hoping to do around
Wow.
6,000. So, like, again, just really finding everybody that matches up culturally and value wise, and making sure again that they're the right person for the right seat has been a huge thing for me. And I don't think that my dad ever really got there. He was kind of the mentality of like, hey, if you want something done right, you do it yourself. And he always was kind of the master of his domain and did a great job at it. But putting faith in other people is where I think I've been able to kick it up a notch. And, we're doing really, really well by it.
That's really cool. So I've got a two-parter. First of all, who was your first hire? And then you mentioned something about finding people and putting them in the right seat where they're going to be doing the work that they like, or that they enjoy, or that they engage with. I don't remember the exact term, but it's something that resonates with me because of a past job that I had. So where did that mentality of putting the right person in the right place come from? Was it trial and error, or was it a book that you read, or some other sort of educational resource?
Yeah, great question. So for my first hire question, I believe that the first hire that I did was a phone person. So I needed to get that off on my plate, right? Like I was good on the phone, but my attention was being diverted elsewhere. So I needed to get off the phone. And so that was a huge help. Having somebody that could be dedicated to answering the phone, scheduling, getting me messages so that I could call back and I wasn't the first person picking up. And then my next hire was another inspector, having a partner that I could help divvy up jobs with. I could send them out to go do something. So that was a big game changer too. As far as like the mentality around how to hire and that type of stuff, it was through trial and error in the beginning. Like I didn't have a whole lot of resources when I first started hiring people. So I think it was definitely, getting my head beat in a little bit in the sense of like, okay, I hired this person and they're doing a decent job, but there's this, and this that I don't think is going really well. Right. And so learning from that, I think I had, before I really kicked it into high gear, I probably had 3 or 4 inspectors, a phone person, and then like just a separate accountant that was handling the financial side of things. We had a great team, and we still have most of those people with us too. But like kicking it into the gear too, where it's something that like is scalable and it's you can replicate it, and it's your hiring process really has to get streamlined to one, carve out what the position is that you need to hire and have really good clarity around what that person could look like, your ideal person, right? What kind of skill sets do they bring? What kind of attributes do they bring? Just a lot of different areas where you have to have really good clarity and what they're doing too. Like if I hired an assistant and I don't have a really good plan for what they're going to be doing, it's going to be a mess, right? Because they don't know what to do. I don't know I kind of know what they want them to do. It's everything that I've been piling up and not doing. But like having a really good job profile is probably number one, right? And then you can put that out to the world and hopefully get some good applicants. But weeding through those people, that's been a skill set. So I've done a lot of training around it. I've taken courses. There's one called RSTMM. It's Keller Williams kind of like take on things. It's Recruit Select is where it comes from. I've done Pivot Ready Teams, which is another entity that I've learned from things. And so we have some screening tools also that we use. So we use the Acumax and the Acumen, and it just gets people's behavioral tendencies down on paper. Mm-hmm. And then we've internally created different profiles to say, okay, what's an ideal inspector look like, right? So for me, it's you want somebody that's patient, you want somebody that's detail oriented, you want somebody that's a good communicator, and a few other attributes that make a really good inspector, good bedside manner, that type of stuff. And so if you get somebody in here and you have a few quick interviews with them, you don't really know down in a wiring level, like, are they detail oriented? Are they patient? Can they communicate well? So having multiple interviews is really important. Getting them out in the field to where they're interacting with somebody besides me or with some of my managers or another inspector. How are they communicating with different people in our organization when their guard's down, maybe? And so, yeah, it's been a process. I would say the biggest help I could probably give to people is slow everything down. Like, just slow down your hiring process to almost like a snail's pace where you're like thinking that this is way too long, because it's been impactful for me to make it not a rush decision. And then also some of the issues that may come up down the road, you can parse those out maybe in the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Really cool. I like that you eventually went to go seek out as much knowledge as you could to better the process. I think that's one of the great skill sets that every entrepreneur can have. When you find a deficiency, either find somebody that can fill it or find some resources to help get better at it. I personally like to find somebody that can fill it. So who was the most pivotal hire as you started to expand? Who is that one key hire that really allowed you guys to expand? Because you said you had 3 or 4 inspectors, you had somebody on the phone, you had the accountant that you had hired before you kicked it up a notch. So who was that one hire that allowed you to really kick it up a notch?
Yeah, I think the best hire that I've made, as far as the position goes, not necessarily the person, was having a growth person or a marketing person. And so I don't like doing that, right? Like, I'm a great forward-facing person for the company. If I was out there doing an inspection, I could connect with you as a realtor. I could connect with the buyers, but I didn't like the sales aspect of it, of following up with the agents. It wasn't on my top of my priority list. Doing presentations, schmoozing with people and kind of like learning about their business. It's not that I can't do it, but it's just not my zone of genius, and like, I just didn't like doing it. So it ended up going down the to-do list quite a bit. And so having somebody that, again, has those natural skill sets, the sales mentality, the business relationship skills, was a big game changer for us. We hired that person during, like, pretty much at the beginning of COVID too. And so I think when COVID hit too, we had 7 people in our organization. And by the year, like March of 2021, we had 14. And so, we had doubled the size of our company during that, unfortunate time frame where it was pretty crazy. But as you know, the market went bananas for inspections. So having somebody with boots on the ground that could go check in with realtors, say, hey, how are you doing? Like, give that extra, touch of care to say, hey, we've got inspectors running around. Do you need anything? Can we stop in at your listing and make sure it's okay? Because people were kind of, not sure if they should be leaving the house at times. And so, yeah, just having that extra set of hands to help fill in those gaps for what I didn't really want to do was huge for us.
I'm curious, as you hired a sales position, did you focus your compensation on the sales, or did you make it salary with bonus, or did you just do salary? Did you have a lot of consideration on how you were going to choose to compensate a person that was focused on growth and sales, or was it trial and error also?
Hey, before we go any further, if you're enjoying this content, please like and subscribe. so you can help us get the word out about these amazing people and businesses here in the Orlando area. Don't miss out on upcoming episodes and help out the show. Now let's get back to it.
Yeah, it's definitely changed a little bit from what the original version, but I do like the idea of giving, sales oriented people a goal to shoot for so that they have some skin in the games, right? So I will say that I can't remember the exact details of how it looked, but we did a base salary, a vehicle compensation, and then we did some benefits for getting new agents and activity and stuff like that. Right now, which I really like the way we have it set up, and it's been in place for over a year and a half or so, is we have our bonus plan is set up off of revenue for the company. So it's just a clean number. It makes sure that everybody's rowing in the same direction. And so essentially what we do is we do a tiered bonus plan for our sales team. So if we hit, okay, I'll just use round numbers. These aren't our numbers, but let's say 100,000 is our baseline to say, hey, we're paying all our bills, the lights are on, payroll's getting paid, that's our bar, right? Well, if we hit 150, they get a certain percentage of that above the 100. And then we have a tiered system, all the way up to like, we're killing it, we're 100% maxed out. If we go above that, then they get a higher percentage. That way, the sales team is all kind of on focus with everybody is trying to get, the most add-ons. We want the highest value properties, commercial buildings, everybody's rowing in the same direction, really. And so we found that to be really valuable. And not to mention from a tracking side of things, it's really easy for us because that's kind of been one of my mottos is like, is this going to make things simpler or more complicated? And if the answer is more complicated, I'm generally not going to do it. And so having a plan where it's just tied into one number and one KPI has been huge for us versus tracking, oh, you added 5 agents and they did this number of inspections, and like breaking it down like that, it gets really messy.
Fascinating. I like that. If it's too complicated, I won't do it. So let's just keep it simple. I tell myself that all the time. Just try to keep it simple. Yeah. This isn't a real estate show, but I am curious because it sounds like you almost have 2 customers. You have the real estate agents that oftentimes are bringing you the business, but being in the business, I know that they aren't the ones that actually pay for the service. So then you have a consumer that's actually paying for the service. So how do you balance that, or how do you approach that from a service, your service company, essentially? How do you drive that when you have 2 customers for every transaction that you do? How do you balance that service mentality to meet the needs of both of those people in that particular case?
Yeah, I love the question. So it's something that we've dove deep into as a company because, ultimately, like you said, the clients are paying for it, right? So they're our client. They're the ones that are signing up with us. We're serving them. We look at our realtors as partners within the deal. And so a lot of our realtors, they know the value of a good inspection, and they want somebody that is going to do a great job for their client, but is not going to be an unnecessary alarmist at things too, that, could be fixed by a handyman. And so having the clarity around what is really important to a realtor and also really important to the client, most of the time they go hand in hand, and as you know, too, there's lots of different personalities in the inspection world, and there's a lot of different personalities in real estate. And so we've found that our best pairing is with people that have values that are similar to ours, right? So if we do a really detailed inspection, which is one thing that the clients really want, right? Like clients want a detailed inspection. They also want a really easy to read report, so that they can understand what's the most important thing. So we use a modern interface. It's web oriented. It's interactive. It's not just this like static PDF that has all this writing in it. It's like broken out into sections, and we highlight if this is a major concern, a minor concern, or a maintenance item. So for the client, that's really easy to read. It's easy to understand. And that also pairs well really with the realtor, because your job too on the back end of the inspection is to help figure out like what are the big deals. So a lot of our stuff aligns really well with both parties, but I would say that our realtors are treated as partners, and that's what we want to be looked at to them too. Somebody that is reliable for them. With our team of 16 inspectors too, availability is huge with realtors, especially depending on the market. Can you get out soon? that was always, like I mentioned before, that was always one of my biggest issues being a solar person, or even with one or two guys, is when can you get out? It may not be for 4 or 5 days, and
Mhm.
that pushes you guys way into the inspection window. So having a team of 16, we can usually get out, sometimes same day, but most of the time next day. And so that's really big for our realtors. So a lot of our benefits that we bring as a company pair really well with what realtors need. And so I think it's a nice balance. And then also to, like having our preferred partners that we really love working with, we give some priority, just don't tell anybody, but we try to give them priority on the one, inspections, last minute jobs that come up. We'll maybe reorganize our schedule to fit them in. So we try to work with them. They work with us. They help us out. Trying to think if there's anything else really that I can think of that answers your question. I think that's probably about it.
Yeah, and it sounds like you try to keep it simple on your reports too.
Yeah.
You detail oriented, but try to make it simple so it's understandable and digestible, and quickly identify what the issues are going to be. And that's great.
Yeah.
I've seen your guys' report before, so
Cool.
it's good. I want to go back to a little bit about growth, and tell me a little bit about what were some of the major growing pains that you saw as you started to grow and really add new team members. What were some of the pain points that you guys had in the early days, and what did you do to try to solve some of them?
Yeah. So there's a lot that I could probably talk about here. I think for me, one of the biggest learning, the things that I've learned the most about growing a team is that I have to be setting up people to help jump up into leadership. I can't do it all, right? And I'm always going to be the bottleneck in the company. And so like I always have to be learning and growing myself and evolving and becoming a better leader and a better person to be able to pass that on to my team. But I also have to be able to relinquish my duties to people and let them fall on their face and fall forward and, mess up and then help them. Right. I am the type of person that likes to give the answers and have, the help given to whoever's asking for it. But there's a lot of times that I have to stop myself from my natural kind of like, here's the answer, to say, hey, what do you think? Let them work it out from their own standpoint, come up with a solution. Maybe it's not the one that I wanted, but say, okay, let's try this out. Let's see how it goes. And then come back to me and let me know what happens. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But then if they come back and give me some feedback, I can help guide them. That's been a huge change for me because, again, just kind of running the show, like I know most of the answers that come in, like just technical stuff. But I do like to give my other people an opportunity. So leadership development's been huge for us because there's going to be a point in your company growth where you have to bring on help. Right. And so do you hire internally from people that already know the business within your organization and you move them up into a leadership position, or do you hire from the outside? And so as it stands right now, we've not really hired from the outside for leadership. We've brought up people internally, and it's worked out really well for us, so far. I know that, if I, let's say, scale this thing out at a 10 times factor, right, like it probably is going to require some outside help from people that have a different view on companies, that have worked for larger companies, larger operations. And, I'm not even there yet, right? Like, so maybe hiring somebody smarter than me in the business and letting them pour into it. But as it stands right now, I think that's been the big thing. But it comes from me working on myself internally to know what my team needs to work on too.
That's great. I like that you focus on trying to develop leadership within the organization and trying to identify those folks. Do you find that there are people that come into your organization that aren't interested in moving up?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of my questions I ask on every interview. It's usually not like first questions, but definitely in the middle of our interviews, I like to know what their aspirations are. Do they desire leadership? Have they ever been in a leadership role previously? And what was their experience with it? How did they handle when things didn't go well for people that they're leading? Like, this is all built into our hiring process. So again, going back to making sure that we're fulfilling people's desires. Like, if I've got inspectors that come to me and they don't want leadership at all. They just want to do a good inspection for their clients and go home and not have to worry about anybody else's stuff for the rest of the day. And that's great, but like, I'm not going to be pushing them into a leadership position when I know that. I'll tell you, like, I did an internal culture survey where I just sent out a Google form that I created, and it just was checking in on, maybe like 10 different questions about desires and where they see themselves within the company and, that type of thing. And the people that were like, hey, I've got my hand way up, I want more, teach me more, I want to move up. Those are the people that are in the leadership positions today, because I was able to identify them and then help work with them and, bring them to different, seminars and meetings with me and really work with them one-on-one, to help kind of grow that leadership side of them, because it doesn't come natural to everybody. And, again, if I'm putting somebody in a position where they're having to do stuff that they don't like, they're not good at, they just don't jive with, it's going to lead to poor work. It's going to lead to dissatisfaction. They're going to be upset when they go home. So really just, again, identifying the people that have their hand up, and then how can we help them? What are their gaps? Where do they need help with? And so, yeah, it's been a neat process. It's definitely a little bumpy along the way, and, they take their licks and I'm there taking it and watching it. So, but it's been a really neat process. We've been pretty lucky with our leadership team.
That's great. So, I've found that most of the people I talk to, most of the entrepreneurs that I interact with, they're big on personal development, self development, and growth, and consuming information that are going to help them grow. Yeah. As you've looked back, what are some, and maybe that's not you. I guess I should ask first: do you believe in reading or listening to audiobooks or whatever it is, and investing in your mindset or growth and learning new thought processes? Is that something that you do on a regular basis?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. I'm an avid reader. I have probably about 10 different podcasts I subscribe to, I think that's probably a pretty common theme that you hear from entrepreneurs. And, for me, I've kind of had that like learning mentality of, I don't like not knowing things. Mm-hmm. And, if I don't know something, I definitely dive into it to learn more about it. My journey for that looks different now. We have 3 young kids in our family. We've got 7, 4, and 2, so we're in the thick of raising children. And so what I look for now is a little bit different than I looked for 5 years ago, 7 years ago. But, a lot of the common things, like the miracle morning, was huge for me in the beginning. Just really like waking up early, getting my day set out right, getting my head clear, writing down the things that I had to do for the day, the top 3 things that would be the big needle movers. Dave Ramsey, whether you love him or hate him, like he's been a big influence too. He's got a great entrepreneur leadership kind of program that I've gotten a lot from. There's tons of things that, I've taken over the years that have really helped me for the time that I'm in. And so like for now too, it's raising kids. Like I want to be a good father too. So I've joined dad organizations to like learn how to be a better father. I've learned how to like handle my emotions better so that I can pass that down to my kids. And so I think it depends on what I'm working on is really what I dive into. For me too, like I'm at a point too now where I kind of get to do what I want during the day. I get to take my kids to school. I get to pick them up from school. I take my daughter to swim class at 3 p.m. Like I'm in a position now because of the work that I've put into, and I've got a great team, that I can craft my day out. I can talk to you at 11:45 in the morning, and, and so like, I'm not out there doing inspections. So that's been a big thing too. I'm jumping all over the place, but being able to transition from working in the business to working on the business when I want, how I want, has been a huge game changer for me. Not only from like a stress standpoint, like I'm a lot less stressed than I was before, but also from, moving the needle standpoint too. And like, what can I really work on in the business, and what can I pass down to my leadership team to take on ownership of, to help the company grow? That's kind of where I'm residing right now. And so, keeping things simple, but really being effective with the time that I do have, so that, I'm not spending 8 hours at the office just kind of twiddling my thumbs and I'm getting like maybe a few things done, but not doing it all that great. I'm using the few hours out of the day that I'm really focusing on what I want to do. And it's really driving it hard, because, just going to an office, sitting in front of the computer for 8 hours a day, every day, is not effective for me. I don't like that, so I'd rather drive really hard for a few hours and get really a lot of stuff done.
I love that. I resonate with so much of that. My growth journey is recent, over the last 5 years, but resonating with setting your own day, choosing where you spend your hours and your time, the ability to go drop my daughter off at school. It was a big driver in why I became an entrepreneur in the first place. Was I looked down the road and said, if I'm gonna be the father I want to be, I'm going to need to have control of my own time, and I'll never do that while I'm working for somebody else and trading my time for dollars. So resonate with that on so many levels. Love it. So if you were going to recommend 2 books to an entrepreneur, what 2 books would you recommend?
Whew, man, those are, I read so much that there's just so many books. So I've got Gap in the Game behind me. I keep that pretty close. If you haven't read that, it's great. Patrick Lencioni, like the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, 6 Working Geniuses. I'm reading that right now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
6 Working Geniuses was just brought up to me by my coach. So it's on
really?
my listening list on Audible. I'll get to it here soon.
I'm definitely a book junkie. I have a stack of books that I like to read through. So I will say this. So from a business standpoint, so Traction, Gino Wickman has been really impactful for me at my level of organization. So, he basically talks about, different meetings and different structures around company interaction so that we can really be effective with our time and we're not wasting our time. So Traction was huge for me. I read it like probably 5 years ago when it was just basically me in the leadership position. And I was like, this sounds really good, but I don't have anybody to talk to in my leadership meetings. So now that I do, it's been really good. So we have our weekly EOS meeting. That's been really good. Yeah, I think those are kind of like top of mind right now for me. But I mean, I've got tons of books, that's the thing is that I found that not one book is ever going to solve everything for you. And so I usually at least get 1 or 2 takeaways. I just thought of another one. So like Essentialism, The One Thing, like those are really good and they resonate with me. I like being, as I mentioned before, simple, easy, clean, focus. Like those all really are good books to like get dialed in and really make sure that I'm working on what is going to move the needle.
That's great. I love that. Awesome. Well, hey, we've been at this for about a half hour, so I want to respect your time. Really appreciate you taking this time to share with us a little bit about your journey and about your business and what you guys do here. If somebody wants to learn more about Central Florida Building Inspectors or about you, what's the best way for them to find out more and get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can definitely visit us on our website. It's cfbinspect.com, like Central Florida Building Inspect.com. If you need an inspection, you can schedule it on there 24 hours a day. You can call our team. I'll give out my email. It's jt@cfbinspect.com. If you guys have any questions or want to reach out to me about anything, I'm always open. I love giving back and helping people and entrepreneurs and other, inspection companies too, especially because I can answer a lot of questions about where we've been and, what's kicked off our journey. So yeah, any of those would be great. And I'll definitely get back to you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes, obviously. Last question. If you were going to give an entrepreneur one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I think invest in yourself, right? I think that the biggest return on your investment is going to be investing in yourself. So, from a health standpoint, like if we're not healthy, we're not going to show up well for anybody, our family or business. So health has been always huge for me. I make that a priority as far as working out, taking care of myself, eating good foods, all that good stuff. I think that, investing in a business coach or a mastermind in your organization can be huge because I did not get here by myself, right? Like the ideas that I have, a majority of them are from other people and people that are maybe a little bit further down the road. And I've just been able to adapt them. I've also had to really figure out my filter on things too, because if I took everything that everybody recommended, it would be overload, right? So like really just working on myself from a standpoint of knowing what is going to align with my values and what I want to try out, and then having a good plan to move that forward. So I know that was a long answer, but just investing in yourself and just making sure that you're really diving into all the different areas of your being so that you can be a better person.
That's great. I love it. Awesome. Well, hey, JT, thank you so much again for being here on the show today. And thank you to everyone that tuned in and listened this far. We really appreciate it. We'll see you around Central Florida.